Hello, and welcome to tomorrow's Talk Today. I'm your host, Aaron. I'm joined by special guests Megan, Chanel, Anthony, and Corey. Today, we'll be discussing romance and dating, two things that can be incredibly complicated, especially in this digital era. Between the difficulty of defining relationships, understanding feelings, using new technology to connect, avoiding and combating toxic relationships, and doing all of that while in a pandemic. We can see that dating is super hard now more ever than ever. Our guests have watched a variety of clips about these different topics, and we'll be discussing them throughout the program. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first clip about the differences between romantic and platonic love to kick off our discussion.
Have different boundaries. If it's a platonic love or a friendship, you don't worry about going out of town. Like, you don't get all freaked out about it. Of course, if you share a room, big deal. If you don't share a room, big deal. Doesn't matter. The whole idea is just enjoy the trip. When it's romantic love, it's a little bit different. It does matter. You have to talk ahead of time if you plan to share rooms, and then you have to be ready for the consequence of what that will mean. If you share a room, is your relationship now exclusive? Are you dating differently? Is it going to change the way your partner feels about you? All of these things are very important, and it's important that you understand that it's not just a friend if it's somebody you feel romantic about. And lastly, romantic love feels more selfish.
As we heard in that clip, there are a lot more to romance than relationships. It's more. It can be complicated, intense, but I want to hear from my guests about their thoughts on romance and what does it mean to be in love. And
Being in love is a really hard topic because there's so much to love. There's so many different kinds of love. Like, you can have love for things, you can have love for people. When it comes to romantic love, I think it's about doing for each other, being able to compromise, but also wanting to do it for your partner, that kind of thing. I think that's the biggest thing with love.
Megan, what are your thoughts on romance and love?
Well, I think love is also a complicated topic. You can love your dog and you can love your parents, or you can feel that deep emotional connection with your significant other. And I think it's a beautiful thing to experience. While I've never experienced it, I just feel that it's unlike anything else.
Beautiful. Corey, what are your thoughts on what romance is?
So romance and love, I feel like go hand in hand, you know? Like you like form a bond when you're in love with somebody. You have a giant trust, and you can love a bunch of people, a bunch of things, and no matter who it is or what it is, you still have that kind of bond that you feel whenever you're around it.
You're exactly right. And Chanel, what are your thoughts on what romance and love are?
I feel like I agree with him. I feel like romance and love go hand in hand, but I feel like it really has to do with quality over quantity. You can know someone for years, not love them, or just have a horrible relationship. And you can know someone for a short amount of time and not necessarily love them yet, but start feeling like you have love for them. And I feel like love has to do more with the qualities that they have that you like trust, loyalty, and stuff like that. So.
Interesting. I like your take on that. So, Ant, I want to ask you, what was your best relationship versus what was your worst relationship?
Try to set me up for something, huh?
It's not my fault.
My best relationship is the one I'm in right now. I've been in my relationship for 3 years. The reason why that's my best relationship is because we set goals together and we work toward those goals together. I think a relationship that works is one that works together toward whatever dream or whatever you have. My worst relationship, that was a long time ago. I don't want to start crying on here or nothing like that, but no, it was a long time ago, and it was just a very toxic relationship. If we weren't together, then we, in the same room together, then it wasn't like a real relationship. It was like we were just friends, except for when we got together.
I understand that. So, yeah. I want to switch it to Chanel though real quick. So Chanel, what was your best and what was your worst relationship?
My best relationship probably was the one I'm in now as well. We've been together going on 2 years. And I really think it's because he's so selfless. And in my previous relationships, I was always the selfless ones, and everyone else was always so selfish, and it's like they didn't care. I was always doing more. So I feel like the fact that he does a lot of stuff that other people didn't do and more, then that's why this is my best relationship.
That's so beautiful. I would talk about me, but we don't got time for that. But I'm glad to hear everybody's thoughts, in all honesty. But now I honestly think we have a better idea about what love means and what building means. And it was a really good discussion. But we'll be right back. Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break.
WMLU 91.3 FM, the music of Longwood University and Farmville, Virginia. Rebound to Phillips. Great, strong rebound by Booty Phillips. And Jordan Tentron with the mid-range jumper goes down off the backboard.
So the sports committee within WMLU is an award-winning committee in itself, and it's an opportunity for people to be able to call Division I athletic events. Basketball, we've done soccer, we've done softball for the first time last year. This year we're doing tennis for the first time, which I'm excited about, as well as baseball in the mix as well. So it's an opportunity for people to get on-air experience, learn who they are as a play-by-play, on-air talent. And there's a lot of different things that kind of come with that.
All right, so with WMLU Sports, there's always 3 people working a game. So usually there'll either be 2 people calling the game, color and play-by-play, and then there'll be 1 person in the studio working the soundboard right here. The soundboard is to make sure that the guys or girls at that game are sounding good. They can hear them over the air or the web stream. If there's any problems, the person in the studio is able to adapt and adjust and make sure that everything here is working well.
I'm a proud Longwood graduate, class of 2011, and there is no way I would be here if it weren't for my time behind the mic at WMLU, the music of Longwood University and the award-winning home of your Longwood Lancers.
So this is an opportunity to grow, learn, figure out what works best for you, what skills you have, what makes you a good on-air talent, good play-by-play person. But it's also, of course, an opportunity to just meet new people with similar interests. Inherently, if you're joining the sports committee, you probably like sports, and then everybody else in the room does too. So it's an opportunity to grow, make new friends, and have that commonality between other individuals.
11:44 left in the second half, which brings us to our under 12-minute media timeout. So we'll come back with Harper Baker at the Charity Stripe here on WMLU Farmville 91.3 FM.
Welcome back. Now that we talked about understanding love, we're going to continue our conversation with defining relationships and how to spot and escape toxic ones. Megan, you've watched a bunch of content related to this and about relationships, so what can you tell us about your thoughts on really what it is and the progression of it?
Well, I think one of the most important parts of forming a relationship is the first love you have with somebody. It teaches you how to compromise, how to communicate, and how to be truly selfless for another person. Whereas something along the lines of the cheesy friends with benefits is more about the physical act of intimacy, and it's just not the same as that emotional bond you can have with somebody.
Very interesting, very interesting. I completely agree with you about the cheesy part. I honestly do. But I'm interested in hearing more. It's actually, or we actually have a clip or a video of what you saw. So let's just go ahead and take a look at it.
This other metaphor when it comes to dating and relationships, meaning if you got to think of it like this. A relationship is about letting you take your time. And I love this metaphor. I heard this quote somewhere. I don't remember where I heard it. It was about, think of it like this. It's like a crock pot instead of a microwave. A microwave is instant, and a crock pot takes hours. It takes time, and it takes time to cook. It takes time to understand. So basically in a relationship, it takes time to understand the other person on the other side and who you're dating. So dating is when you are doing things together. When you're asking common questions, where are you from? What do you like to do? What are your passions? What are your hobbies? And then the more.
Wow. So now that we've seen a bit of that, we're also going to talk about toxic relationships. So I'm going to open up the floor to Chanel, who's going to introduce the topic of toxic relationships and how to spot one and how to get out of one. So Chanel?
So basically with toxic relationships, after doing research, I realized it's not really a set definition. It's more so of traits. Someone who lacks empathy for you, someone who's unfaithful, someone who's controlling over you. And to leave a toxic relationship, what you have to do is it might be slowly, but you have to try to get time apart from them slowly and slowly, because in a toxic relationship, a lot of times they have control over you and you've become dependent of that person. So you have to make yourself independent. And that's really the best way to leave a toxic relationship.
Very well put. So Corey, I want to ask you, it's personal. Have you ever been in a toxic relationship? And if not, do you know someone who has been, and how did that look from the outside in?
I myself have not been in a toxic relationship. Trying to think about it. I think the only toxic thing I've seen from one of my friends' relationships is that their partner was always like controlling and trying to never get them to like hang out with their friends, never letting them do what they want to do. So I try to help them, like try to talk to her more about that, but yeah.
Interesting. Now I want to deflect it back to Ant, because you openly said you were in a toxic relationship. So what was it like, and how did you get out of it? Because it's not the easiest thing in the world.
I gotta think back to my time. You're gonna make me tear up or something. You know?
We got tissues.
But it's okay. It's okay. But I don't know how to describe it. It's, as I said, I was in a relationship where when we were together, right? But when we were apart, it was like, well, I kind of know you, I guess. You know, we text every now and then. We don't really call or anything like that. So the relationship it felt like, I think the best way to describe love and faith and trust in a person is, what do you do when you're not with that person? So like with a toxic relationship, if you're away from that person and all of a sudden all those feelings go away, clearly there's a problem there. You know what I'm saying? I think on both ends, on me and her part, it was, when we were apart, we weren't together anymore. It was weird. So we got out of that by eventually coming to terms with that and then breaking up. There was some stuff before that, but you know, it's just a little personal.
I understand.
You know, don't want to go back to it.
No, I get it. I get it. So Megan, briefly, describe what you think goes into a relationship that is toxic and how to get out of it.
Well, I think one of the most important parts of getting out of a toxic relationship is those around the person. I think it's hard when you're inside of a toxic relationship that's very controlling to be able to see that and know how to get out of it. So going back to what Corey had said, how he had helped his friend, I think that's a very important thing to do to get out of a toxic relationship.
I completely agree with you. So obviously there was a lot that goes into defining and developing our relationships, especially when they've taken a turn for the worse. But things aren't all bad after this quick break. We'll be talking about digital dating and finding love during the pandemic here on tomorrow's talk.
Oh yeah. Communication Studies Department has always prided itself on having our students do original research. And in the fall of 2018, when I was teaching that class, I wanted to look for a way to have our students present that research in a different manner. And I did a little research, and I could not find anyone else who had live streamed original undergraduate research. So I kind of came up with the idea to have the students present, and Dr. Paul was very agreeable here. And so rather than doing a traditional poster session or something like that, we came up with the idea to have our students present their research in front of the camera. And the cool thing about that is the distribution is much wider than would be typically. Parents, alumni, friends of the department all got to watch that research, and the students also had something that was more lasting that they could look at later in life than a traditional poster format.
So one of the ultimate aims of doing research is that you get to share it with somebody, and that it's just not for yourselves or just to have some sort of document. It's to be able to disseminate that research, whether you have significant findings or not. And so being able to have an audience for your research project is paramount. And having an opportunity to live stream it gives students an awesome opportunity to be able to share it with a large audience.
So being in the studio, there's just nothing like that. This is the whole overall experience. You got the cameras, the lights, everything in front of you, being on the stage, and all the information's there, and you have one take to get that information out as efficiently as you can, compared to having a poster session where people come and go as they please, and you're just set at one spot for X amount of time. So being in the studio, it's just a great experience, nothing like it.
Glad to have everyone back. So, to wrap up our conversation about love, we're going to talk about online dating and how we can use it to find love even during quarantine. To kick things off, let's get a preview of how people feel about online dating with this quick clip. Oh, okay.
Misconception people have about online dating. So maybe that it sort of serves a narrow lane of like horny men.
That everyone's being something that they're not. Someone's pretending.
I personally had a great experience with online dating. I met a great guy.
Not everyone does very well on dating apps. Some of my stronger qualities are how I make you feel, and that's not necessarily something that can come through on the dating app.
I feel like the online dating thing has really skewed how young men and women especially look at relationships.
But I think I'm open-minded, so I would love to learn just to see what kind of success.
So, obviously, there's a lot of mixed feelings about online dating. Anthony, why don't you start us off with a little bit of the pros and cons that go into some of the insight that you gained about understanding online dating?
Well, some of the pros and cons are, one thing that was talked about, especially in that video that we just showed, was they talked about discrimination. There's a study out that was done by, I think it was OkCupid, that did like a poll from like 2006 to like 2017 about preferences, and we saw that black women and Asian men were the least likely to be preferred. And that really brought up the question of preferences versus discrimination. We also saw just, I think 2-3 years ago, they finally brought out more LGBTQ terms. So now they can choose 3, it's not just gay or heterosexual, it's so much more than that. It's asexual, demisexual, a whole bunch more.
Interesting. So, from Corey, about dating during the pandemic, what were your thoughts about it? And then we're going to open up discussion for everyone to talk about dating through the pandemic. So, what are your thoughts?
So, my thoughts, a bunch of the dating apps have actually made a bunch of new guidelines to follow the COVID rules and all that. And they've made it so it's possible for people to get ingredients delivered to each other's houses, and people can cook together over Zoom or FaceTime. So I thought that was pretty cool about all that.
Huh. I like that. I really do. So Chanel, may I ask you how the pandemic has affected your love life in positive or negative ways with everything going on?
I feel like it has affected it positively and negatively because we spend so much time together, so we get to know stuff about each other that we didn't even know. We've been together for so long. It's like you get to know the little things. But I feel like it's negative because we do spend so much time together. Like, we live together and we're around each other all the time, and sometimes it's hard to get that break away from each other when you're living with each other, especially with the pandemic going on, because you can't just go anywhere and be like, okay, I need to get away.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like just finding how to be able to get time apart, even if it's going in a different room for a few hours, I feel like that's really needed in relationships.
You're exactly right, it is. And Megan, may I get your opinion on, have you experienced any online dating or this type of crazy scenario that has been the pandemic? Have you had anything pertaining to that?
Well, I have not had any experience with online dating, but going off of what Chanel had said, I think this pandemic has hurt a lot of relationships in many ways, because without that face-to-face interactions, it's harder to form that strong foundation that a relationship would need to survive in the long run and through a marriage potentially.
Interesting. Corey, I want to ask you something real quick too. Do you know anyone who's been using dating apps or been doing some things we discussed during the pandemic?
During the pandemic, I don't know anybody who's been using dating apps, but before, most of my roommates were on dating apps, and people I know other in my building. But
so that's about it?
So I don't really know anybody who used it during the pandemic. No.
Okay. And do you know anybody like who's tried it?
Yeah, I have a few friends that have tried out dating apps and stuff like that. They mainly used it for like, you know, I don't want to put their business out there. I ain't gonna put no names out there, but they use it for like hookups and stuff like that. I think one of the videos that I saw really talked about, you know, the difference between hookups and then like somebody that actually wants an actual relationship, and like how it kind of like, it sometimes kind of like bleeds together. But the video that I saw, it was a TED Talk, and she said, if you want a real relationship with somebody from online dating, then you have to be intentional with every step of the way. You have to make sure that you're really putting your best foot forward, but also getting offline and talking to that person, you know, in person, face to face, to make sure you know exactly who it is.
Beautifully well put. I like everything you had to say. Thank you so much for being here today. We've had awesome discussions today. I hope everyone has learned a little bit of something about love, romance, and dating. And thanks for watching tomorrow's talk. And we'll see you next time. And tune in next time as we'll be talking about the uses of social media. Have a good one.